I Build Me a Castle. I lay down on my bed with my money and other precious things close at hand. All night long the wind blew and the rain poured. Early in the morning I arose and looked out toward the sea. The waves were rolling very high. The ship was gone. The sea had swallowed it up. As I could make no more visits to the ship, I now began to think of other things. I was still afraid lest there were savage beasts on the island. Savage men, too, might come that way. If any one of these should find me, how could I protect myself from them? I must have a stronger house to live in. I must build me a little fort or castle. The place I was in was flat and wet. My tent was on open ground and could be plainly seen from a distance. There was no fresh water near it. I must find a better place than this for my castle. A little way from the shore there was a rocky hill. I went to look at it. Halfway up the hill there was a large level place with a great rock rising behind it like the side of a house. I climbed up to the level place. There was but one way to go, and that was by a steep and winding path. I found the place much larger than I thought. It was more than 100 yards long, and almost half as broad. It was, indeed, a green field, or plain, with steep cliff rising up behind it. You must think of it as a great shelf halfway up the side of the hill. Here, I said to myself, is the place for my castle. It was no easy thing to carry all my goods up the steep path to this level plain. I worked hard for many days, but then there was nothing else to do, and I must needs keep busy. At one place on the side of the great rock there was a break or opening like the door to a cave, but there was no cave there. Just in front of this break I began to build my castle. First I drew a half circle upon the ground, with the opening at the center. The place which it enclosed was about 30 feet across. In this half circle I set up 2 rows of strong stakes, driving them deep into the ground. The rows were not more than 6 inches apart. The stakes were about 2 inches apart and as high as my head. Then, between and around these stakes, I laid the great ropes that I had brought from the ship. Among these I twined the slender branches of trees and long grapevines that I found in the woods. When all was finished, I had a wall nearly 6 feet high. It was so strong that nothing could break through it. I made no door in the wall. The only way in which to get into the yard behind it was by going over the top. This was done by climbing a short ladder which I could lift up after me, and then let down again. How safe I felt now, as I stood inside of my castle wall. Over this wall I next carried all my riches, food, my tools, my boxes of clothing. Then, right against the great rock, I made me a large tent to shelter me from the rain. Into this tent I brought everything that would be spoiled by getting wet. In the middle of it I swung my hammock that I had brought from the ship, for you must remember that I was a sailor, and I could sleep better in a hammock than on a bed. The hollow place in the rock was just as I hoped. It was, indeed, a large cleft or crack, filled only with earth and small stones. With such tools as I had, I began to dig the earth and stones away. I carried them out through my tent and piled them up along the inside of my wall. In a few days I had made quite a cave, which would serve very well as a cellar to my castle. I called the cave my kitchen, but when I began my cooking I found it best to do most of that work outside. In bad weather, however, The kitchen was an excellent place to live in.